We have
Sure.
Congressman Matt Gaetz on the line. I want to get his take real quick. And Monica, I didn't mean to cut you off. We'll come back to you. But this is one of our first leaders that I want to get on the program. There he is, Congressman Gaetz. Not a day I want to be talking to you about something like this. I'm sure you were home with the wife or canvassing your district, or maybe you were there supporting. I don't know what you were doing, Matt. Fill us in on your first reaction, and then we'll talk about what we know and what we don't know. Nice to see you, Congressman.
Yeah, certainly we are praying for the soul of the lost life at the Trump rally today. And for that person's family, you never expect that when you go to a Trump rally that's going to be your last day walking around the planet Earth, because these are patriotic and welcoming and, might I say, loving events. You and I have been to many of them. You've covered them. I've spoken at them. And here's what's ringing in my mind right now, Dan. Back in April, Benny Thompson, the leading Democrat on the Homeland Security Committee, called for President Trump to be stripped of his Secret Service protections.
That's what I was talking about. Thank you, Matt.
They wanted to take away his protections. That is a green light to anyone wanting to do President Trump harm for whatever reason. And they were literally saying, because of the sham prosecutions they'd set up against him, that he was unworthy of being protected. That is astonishing. And the message that sends to people is that violence is okay and that you can hurt folks if you don't like the way their prospects are heading in a presidential contest. We haven't seen this in nearly half a century in our country. We never want to see it happen to anyone of any political party. And the fact that it's happened to President Trump shows that they will do anything to stop this man. They have tried to impeach him. They have tried to convict him. They have tried to gag him. They were trying to imprison him. And now they have tried to assassinate him. And every time they do this, the people become more committed to the vision for the country that he has for our success and our prosperity. And while we don't know much about the shooter or the security envelope, and there are a lot of important questions that I think you're starting to ask on those questions, what we do know is that President Trump is determined to save this country from the path of ruin that we are on, and the efforts to stop him are unlike any politician has ever faced in our country's history.
Matt, I just want to reset everything for folks that may just be joining us here on One America News. We were talking about the assassination attempt on President Donald J. Trump, which occurred just a few hours ago in Butler, Pennsylvania. We understand the president was hit in his upper right ear. We believe there was 7 to 8 shots fired from a gunman on a rooftop about 50 yards away. As Matt said at the beginning, if you joined us a few minutes ago, unfortunately, one of the innocent bystanders, a Trump rally goer, was shot. To me, I saw the video, in the head and killed. Secret Service also killed the gunman. We're not sure if it was a lone gunman, if there are more. Matt, stick with us. I want to real quick, if the team can pull it up in the back, President Trump just put out a truth a few minutes ago, and I want to read it out loud for everybody to hear. President Trump says, I want to thank the United States Secret Service and all law enforcement for their rapid response on the shooting that just took place in Butler, Pennsylvania. Most importantly, I want to extend my condolences to the family of the person at the rally who was killed. Trump always thinking about us. Also to the family of another person that was badly injured. It is incredible that such an act can take place in our country. Nothing is known at this time about the shooter, who is now dead. I was shot with a bullet that pierced the upper part of my right ear. Let me pause real quick. For all of you people at CNN and elsewhere saying projectiles or something shattered, or not even calling this assassination, or a bullet, stop. The man was shot. Now I'll finish. I knew immediately that something was wrong, in that I heard a whizzing sound, shots, and immediately felt the bullet ripping through my skin. Much bleeding took place, so I realized then what was happening. God bless America. Donald J. Trump, 5:43 p.m. That's West Coast time, my time, folks. So just a few moments ago, 7 minutes ago, he truthed that. Your thoughts, Matt, on the president's first truth since being shot in the head?
I've been in communication with members of his campaign team who were there on the ground, and this is directly in concert with their reports that President Trump at all times has been okay, that he's been in good spirits, but that he's defiant, that he's not going to be shaped by this, he's not going to be stopped by this, that he is singularly focused on the work ahead. And, you know, President Trump, above all things, is a host. Remember, this is a hotelier, this is a restaurateur, and it really matters to President Trump that people who are in his proximity and are welcomed at his events are comfortable and safe. He almost does does this to a fault. And so it's no surprise that his first thoughts are for the family members of those who have been killed and injured in this terrible act of political violence in this assassination attempt. I know he'll think about those folks, and they'll probably be a big part of his presidency. He'll do everything he can to honor them, because this is something that should never happen at a political event in our country.
Yeah, to anyone, Matt. I mean, come on. I can't remember at any point in time where we have seen the vitriol from the right calling for the death of Joe Biden. I can't find that. I don't see that online. I don't see people saying that. We want him to step down. We want him to go to a nursing home. We want him to get medical attention. But no one's ever been calling for his death. People have called for Donald J. Trump's death, and today they almost got their wishes. And if you look at what's trending on Twitter, X, right now, Matt, literally, how could you miss? Just inches? You had one job? These are the disgusting phrases trending right now from American citizens wishing that that gunman would have killed President Trump. Who started that rhetoric? Who got people that far gone, Matt?
When the left uses the language of like an existential threat when they talk about President Trump in these stark and horrendous terms, I think that it greenlights this type of activity, and we never want to see that from anyone.
Correct.
I am concerned for my friend. I am concerned for our country. We don't want to devolve into this type of chaos. This is what we're used to seeing in third world nations, not in the United States of America. And again, I point to the fact that you had Democrats as recently as April saying that President Trump was unworthy of even being protected by the Secret Service. What do you think they're really calling for when they say that? What do you think they want to happen when they want to strip this guy's security away from him, when they've done everything to say that he's a dictator and a threat to democracy? Look no further than Joe Biden's speech just in the last 48 hours, where he's been trying to do everything he can to cast Trump in the starkest of terms as a consequence of his own failures. That's not the type of politics we want to see. It's certainly not the process we want to see for choosing the leaders of the greatest country in the world.
You know, Matt, you and I are on the same page. I agree with you most days 110% of the time, and today is one of them for sure. I reported right before you jumped on, I wanted to see what you think acts Congress will take next week. I know everybody's going to be busy with the convention, but the Federalist is reporting that Team Trump had asked, quote, for beefed up Secret Service details for the last several months because of the amount of threats coming in, and they did not meet those demands. So I would hope that someone, Jim Jordan, Comer, one of the committees, I know you will be raising hell back in D.C. and demanding answers from the hierarchy in the Biden regime on why his request for more Secret Service details went unnoticed. What's going on?
Yeah, that'll be, I'm sure, the subject of a lot of questions. And it's something that we would afford anyone, whether it's RFK Jr. or Joe Biden or Donald Trump. We want our presidential candidates to be protected. Think about the message this sends to the rest of the world about democracy, about our republic. You've heard Democrats for the last 4 years say that it's Republicans who are the grave threat to democracy.
Right.
We never really felt that way. We want democracy and the republic to flourish. But at the same time, when the Democratic outcome looks like it's going to be the election of Donald Trump as a consequence of the people's choice, you see this eruption of violence. You could see people around the world starting to question the stability of this type of system. And that's what we have to fight against. We want emerging nations always to choose the vote of the people over the rule of tyrants. But when you see this type of action taken by force instead of through the electoral process, it's very demoralizing. It's very harmful. And that's why it needs to be condemned from all corners, and why the investigations that you've outlined the contours of must be undertaken. I could tell you, as someone who, probably been to 20 to 30 Trump rallies, there's usually a pretty robust review of any elevated positions. I can think of airports where any rooftops are covered with snipers and Secret Service. I can think of schools where the president has made presentations where the rooftops are frequently cleared of any type of activity other than police and guardsmen. And so to see a rooftop or an elevated position exposed as a mechanism to harm President Trump is really antithetical to how I think about the typical security envelope. And we'll have to ask a lot of serious questions about why that happened. I can also tell you that in a lot of these cases, President Trump is always eager to be as close to the people as possible. I've seen the Secret Service grimace and shrug when unscripted President Trump will bolt toward a line of supporters waiting in a photo line or at an airport or outside an event. And so he's not the easiest person to guard. But here we had a planned event. He wasn't getting in or out of a vehicle or an aircraft. He was at the podium where he was expected to be. And the fact that someone from outside the security envelope would have a shot at the president really ought to raise questions so that we can protect everyone running for presidential office now and in the future.
Matt, there is a soundbite. I don't know if my team found it yet, but I was playing just the audio of it right before you came on. It was of a MAGA rally goer who was doing an interview shortly after the chaotic scene started to calm down a bit. He was talking with BBC. You may or may not have seen this yet, but he claims at least 3 minutes before the first shot was fired, he and his family and friends noticed the man bear crawling with a rifle across the rooftop of a building. He claims only 50 yards from the parking lot of this venue, and that he and his friends and family were trying to wave down, notify police. They were looking around, and he said, we were trying to notify them for a good solid 2 to 3 minutes that a man was on the rooftop. And so my whole question is, because like you said at the beginning of this, you and I have been to these rallies. They've got Secret Service 360 coverage on rooftops. They've got drones in the air. They're supposed to be watching 360. How does someone get on a rooftop and bear crawl across it, set up, and then get off 8 shots before we take him out in this modern day and age? With the technology and weaponry Secret Service has, it makes no sense to me unless either one, pure incompetence and not enough staff, or they're in on it, or somebody's in on it. How do you let that happen? I'm sorry. I'm going to throw some people under the bus because you got Trump requesting more Secret Service. You got members of Congress, your colleagues on the Democrat side, saying he shouldn't even have Secret Service, and now he almost gets killed today. I mean, seriously?
No, I don't think we can discount the work of God here in this, truly. I mean, if President Trump's head had just been tilted slightly the other way, you and I would be having a very different conversation about our friend.
Centimeters.
I mean, it was truly divine that President Trump was spared in this horrific act of violence. And you're right that the typical security profile for a presidential event like this, or a presidential contest, a presidential election rally, involves drones, it involves satellite, it involves jamming of electronics. This is not something where you just get some folks establishing a checklist or magnetometers. There are multiple levels of security that occur on the ground, in the air, even over flight. And the fact that someone was able to penetrate that does raise serious questions that we're not going to be able to resolve now. I can tell you that a lot of times at these rallies, because you typically see snipers on the tops of the buildings, rally goers will say, oh my gosh, there's someone with a gun on the top of the building, and that would be unusual because those are people there for our protection. And so maybe there was confusion, maybe there was a lack of appropriate identification. Certainly there must have been, because somebody army crawling would not be sufficient to penetrate the technology, the people, the specialists that are typically in place whenever you've got somebody running for president at a planned rally like this. I mean, Dan, I was always worried about President Trump's safety. I talked to him just 2 or 3 days ago and said, look, they've tried to do everything they can to you. I worry about your physical safety. And he brushed it off, as he typically does. But I've been reminded of that conversation so vividly and in such stark terms now that this has happened. And I always thought, gosh, he does so many off the records, where he stops in at a pizza parlor or he stops in at a fire station and wants to visit with people. And, a lot of those, he just assumes the risk. But at a pre-planned rally where they stage dates in advance,
right,
he shouldn't be assuming that risk.
But you know what, Matt? Looking at it, though, you have a better shot of, I didn't use that word, you have a better chance of nothing happening when you just pop in and it's a surprise. Nobody expects Trump to be there. What's the likelihood of some angry person with a rifle or a gun to kill him? Versus here, where they know where he's going to be, they know where he's going to be standing, and somehow they infiltrated our best security forces at the Secret Service level. Look, I was texting some of my buddies that are ex-Special Forces, Marine Recon, Navy SEAL, whatever, and they're like, there's no way in hell, if they checked all those rooftops and they were monitoring them like they always do, that someone could army crawl across with the rifle, laid across, like we're taught in boot camp, and then set up and shoot without inside job or a complete breakdown of communication. Because if an eyewitness is telling BBC he saw the guy 3 minutes before and tried to warn them, what the hell was our Secret Service doing for those 2 to 3 minutes? How didn't they see him if a bystander saw him? And I wish we had that soundbite that I watched. I played the audio because I want people to hear and see this young man tell his story about what he witnessed. I believe him. Matt, I know you got to run. I'll give you the final word. It's a dark day for our country. We got to pray for the Trump family, pray for every American. What we witnessed today is mind-boggling, and I hope that nothing ever happens like this again to any candidate of any level. This violence is not called for. The vitriol that's been happening the last 8 years since Trump came on the political scene has been disgusting, and they want to blame him when it's been them. And look what happened today because of their rhetoric. Congressman Matt Gaetz, you get the final word, sir.
There's no doubt as we unpack this, there are going to be multiple failures that had to occur if anyone was able to get in this type of proximity to do this type of harm to President Trump. This is not something that happens because one thing went wrong. This is a failure on multiple levels. And we have to pull through this as a country, Dan. We have an election coming up. We want to show the world that we make a choice for our leaders based on the vote of the people. And it seems as though Democrats have erected every possible barrier to that leading up to this moment, whether it was the lawfare or the civil suits or the attempt to take Trump off the ballot or constantly calling him a dictator and saying he's an existential threat to the country.
Those didn't work. So you got to kill him.
That brought to this, and it never should. It really shouldn't. And I'm praying for him. But here's one thing I know about my friend Donald Trump. This will not slow him down one bit. This will not limit his work on the campaign trail. I think you're going to see an even more determined, focused, and might I say spirited Donald Trump at the convention this coming week. And boy, a convention it'll be following these events.
That was, you just answered. I was going to throw one more and say, do you think he'll still show up Monday, be there for all of his speeches and appearances? And I firmly think he will be there. He will. This man, he will brush this off somehow. After being shot in the head, he's going to brush this off. He's going to come back better than ever, and this will be a landslide. I want to share this picture with you, Matt, in the audience. I don't know if you can see it. This is a picture. Have you seen this picture? Yeah. You've seen it. So let me tell people what I just showed you. This is a picture from one of the press corps that was just underneath President Trump, named Doug Mills, who shot it as the first bullet zinged by before the second one hit him in the head. You can actually see his hair going, and the bullet zinging past his head. I mean, my God. So the first one missed his head, and then one caught him in the ear, and then the other ones, I don't know where they went, but I mean, unbelievable, folks. This man was centimeters from death today. If any media outlet, if any pundit, if any liberal tries to label this anything else than an assassination, to hell with you, and shame on you. Congressman Matt Gaetz from the great state of Florida, as always, sir, thank you for coming on the program. Appreciate you. God bless you.
Thank you, my friend.